Well, several years ago, my car was kind of wearing out, and I knew I needed to get a different car because I was traveling an inordinate number of miles from churches. I was a supervising pastor, and I traveled to about 80 different churches all over upstate New York in my job. And so I let it be known that I needed a new car, and one of the members of the Rome United Methodist Church worked for a dealership in Rome. He contacted me and said, "I have just the car for you." And so it was his father's car. And he said, "I have all of the maintenance records and everything you'll need. He's taken very good care of this car," and so we made arrangements to buy it. And for a long time, I drove that car, and it was indeed what he had said it was. But over a course of time, that car too began to show some signs that I needed to get another vehicle. So I put it on the front lawn for sale. It was there a few days, and a young couple came and looked at it. And she needed a car, but she wasn't traveling great distances, but she needed it for her work, and so she offered to buy it. She said to me, I have almost all the money that you want for the car, but I'm short some of the money. Would you sign the car over to me, and I will bring you the rest of the money when I get it together? That was 15 years ago. What should I do? What would you do? Nothing. I haven't even thought about it until I read this account from the Gospel of Matthew about the Lord and the servants. And I thought, isn't it interesting that we do have experiences like this from day to day in our own journeys, where we somehow are graceful enough to forgive something that we could pursue, and we could make an issue out of it so that it would cause some angst or anxiety or pain for others, but inside we know it's really not all that important. It's interesting when you look at some of the good things that have been happening in our society. Some people will pay it forward. Isn't that an interesting concept? It happens sometimes on the thruway, it happens sometimes in the fast food line. It happens in a variety of settings where someone is thoughtful enough or kind enough to anticipate somebody coming after them, and they pay it forward. Or for example, in the holiday season, which isn't really far away from us, people will begin to shop and they will put things on layaway. And more we've discovered that somebody will come into a store that has a layaway program and ask, is there someone here that I can pay the cost of their layaway items? And when they come to make their next payment, suddenly they discover it's all been paid for by someone who was thoughtful enough and kind enough to anticipate a need. Have you ever paid it forward? Now, I don't necessarily mean that you've paid somebody's toll or somebody's food bill, but paying it forward is anticipating the need of someone you may meet along the way of your journey. And anticipating that there will be a time when you can extend yourself in a helpful or kindly way on behalf of that person. Do we think ahead about this possibility? This story in the Gospel of Matthew is a powerful story because the servant who owed far more than he could probably pay was forgiven because the Lord of the manor decided he would have mercy. Did this servant understand what was happening? No. When he had someone who owed him money, he exacted every last cent, no matter what it cost. Paying it forward is a concept that has been biblically instilled in us by the way Jesus relates to our daily living. And of course, in Romans and in 1 Peter, it's very clear that the way God pays it forward is that God anticipates our deepest needs and goes before us prepared to do whatever we need at any given time in our life. Because that is the way God is at work in our world and in our own individual lives. Now we're going to take up an offering, Encore, for example. If you had experienced what some of these folks are experiencing by hurricanes and natural disasters, what would you hope that folks would do to be helpful to you? Think about that for a moment. What would you do and want people to do for you if this had happened? Suppose your house were leveled. Suppose you had to start over. Suppose your job, for example, didn't exist anymore. Suppose all of those things that are connected with these kinds of events that happen to people, not just in our country, but all around the world. Jesus has called us to awaken us. This account in the Gospel of Matthew is Jesus' way of saying we are called to pay it forward. That is, in our individual lives, we need to be thinking about how do we use who we are and what we have in order to help those who are coming behind us. So as we think about our gift of Encore for hurricane relief, or as we think about our daily walk in life, how do we pay it forward? Sometimes it's a very simple thing. Making a phone call to somebody that you know is going through a difficult time. You're paying it forward. You're doing what God is asking us to do. Or suppose it's time to make a visitation on somebody who's struggling with an issue or concern of their lives, and you do it. You're paying it forward. You're absolutely embracing the way Jesus has encouraged us to live out our daily existence. Now, I realize that there are many, many times when that's a pretty tall order. Sometimes it means we have to set aside our own agenda. Oh, we have lots to do. We have things we can fill up our days with every single day. So which of those do we lay aside to pay it forward so that we can somehow make ourselves available to make a difference for someone else? I know that that can be a tall order. It's not that the things we do every day are not significant. They are. But sometimes we have to lay aside our personal agendas long enough to be available for what God wants us to do. It's a tall order. But that's the way God has called us and equipped us to be at work in the world. You realize, of course, that every one of us, wherever we're going after worship today, or after we get up tomorrow morning, wherever we go and whatever we do, there will be opportunities to pay it forward. The first thing you do when you go to work on Monday morning, and the first person you see, what do? Yeah, it's Monday morning.
I was giving them the look.
How do you greet the day? Think about that for a moment.
I bring coffee too.
But think about that for a moment. We don't realize how that may impact people around us. Or someone who has a need and we say, oh, don't bother us with that. That doesn't seem too terribly important. But to that person, it may be tremendously significant. And sometimes it's just a simple thing. If we're equipped by God and we are called by God, we have ways to make a difference. The sad thing is that we live in a world that doesn't always consider the possibilities to make life better. We drag our agendas along behind us almost everywhere we go. Sometimes it's hard to put those agendas aside and say that does not have to determine how I connect with you or you or you. Just because I disgruntled about a Monday morning doesn't mean I have to make everybody else disgruntled about a Monday morning. Just because I may be a little achy today doesn't mean I have to make everybody else uncomfortable about my aches and my pains. I mean, think about it, friends. It's not that folks don't care about us and that we don't care about people, but so often we're dragging a lot of baggage with us when we go through each and every day. And how much of that baggage is truly a necessity? How much of it gets in the way of being that person that God is asking us to be? And you know, the interesting thing is, when you pay it forward, you'll discover almost immediately that someone else pays it forward. It's a catching thing. I hate to call it a disease because it's not a disease, but it does have a way of infecting situations, doesn't it? It has a way of making a difference, not just for one person, but for several people. And Jesus is saying that how we treat one another, it matters. And you know that. We've celebrated that time and time again when we're in worship. But Jesus is saying to the group that's listening to him, you need to learn how to forgive, to forthgive, to anticipate the need. When I use the word forgive, I say forthgive. That is, it's out there in front of us. It's not something we have to wait to say, oh, I need to forgive that person. You know you're going to have to forgive someone. That's just the way life unfolds for all of us. If you're prepared, you're more likely to do it. If you're prepared, you're more likely to do it. Do you think about how God has forgiven you? The scripture says God is always before us, anticipating our need. The Lord of the Manor in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus uses this as a way of describing how God has responded and treats us. How then are we to respond and treat one another? If God is before us, waiting, anticipating our deepest needs, and the scripture says that's what God is. God isn't behind us, shoving us somewhere. God is waiting for us. He's waiting out there for us because God knows we will need to be forgiven. God knows we will need to be healed. There are so many ways in which we can experience what God has prepared for us. And the deepest need that God has prepared for us is the need to be forgiven. To forgive us. Because we are human, because we do sometimes trip, stumble, and fall. God picks us up and encourages us to keep going. So I hope that sometime this week, you'll all find an opportunity to pay it forward. I'm looking for an opportunity to do that. I hope you will too. And not just this week, but in the way you live each and every day. Realize that there will be these opportunities to forgive. That's the way God has planned it. And that's the way God makes the world a better place for all of us. I have to be honest with you, I haven't seen that lady who bought my car for a long time. I hope that she's not avoiding me because I have no intention of saying, you owe me this. Because I don't even feel like she owes me anything. Friends, think about it. All of us have these opportunities almost every day. Let's pray.